This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
What's good, folks? Family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle-earth to another edition of Disguise Coverage presented by the best pizza in Buffalo, New York, One Pie Pizza, and powered by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. I am your host, Anthony Prohaska. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro 2 ANT. Find me on Blue Sky at pro_ant. No underscores in the pro ant on Blue Sky because they don't allow characters in the handle there on Blue Sky. Drop a like on this video, family, friends, loved ones. Tell them all about it. If you enjoy the show, if you enjoy the channel, all of that good stuff in this episode of Disguise Coverage, the only podcast that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin. We are going to dive into the Buffalo Bills versus Detroit Lions matchup in Week 15. I think a game that, despite what happened to the Bills against the Rams, is still a bit of a Super Bowl preview. Is the marquee matchup of the week. I think is a game that people have had circled on their calendars, not just Bills fans and Lions fans, but I think football fans have had circled for a little bit, especially as we got into the last 2 or 3 weeks and we started to see how these teams have formed a little bit and started to take in shape. I'm falling all over myself. We're only a minute and a half in. I've had my first love. Not great. But yeah, how these teams have taken shape, what they're doing, who they're going to be, who they are. And as we do here on the show, in-season episodes, the scheme, the structure, the X's and O's of this matchup, the who's, the what's, the why's, the how's, all of that. And to have that conversation, I say we because I'm not alone in this episode. I am joined by Mr. Russell Brown, NFL draft analyst for Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros, and then does Detroit Lions stuff for the Lions Wire and the Detroit Lions podcast. You folks are obviously familiar with Russ. Used to be on the Cover One team, and obviously, Russ, you're on a ton here on guys coverage come draft season when we just talk prospects and evaluations and rankings and combine stuff and all that. But welcome to the show. Thank you for taking the time. How's it going?
I'm good, man. Thanks for, as always, bringing me back. Always enjoy these chats. I think some people wonder, do these guys actually don't like each other, or they send gifts to each other and roast each other on Twitter? But no, me and Ant are good friends, and we talk quite a bit outside of social media in the podcast. So I appreciate it, as always, bringing me back. Excited for Sunday. I'm going to try to stay as mutual and level-headed as I can, but really excited to finally have a good football team here in the city of Detroit. It's been far too long.
Yeah, man. It's funny. I was thinking even just the Lions' trajectory and where they've been and where they are, and then them playing the Bears on Thanksgiving this year, it made me think back to, I should have looked up the year, and I meant to do it on Thanksgiving and I didn't, and I should have done it before this. I was little. Lions played the Bears on Thanksgiving, and Barry Sanders was just wild good.
Yeah.
I had to have been 6 or 7 or 8, something like that. And it was one of I'd watched Barry Sanders a ton, and I was always playing Madden 93, and I picked the Lions because they had Barry Sanders. I loved Barry Sanders and Jerry Rice were my 2 favorite players growing up. I have multiple. I have a Barry Sanders Oklahoma State jersey. I have multiple Barry Sanders Lions jerseys. I love Barry Sanders. And so seeing that game this Thanksgiving, Bears Lions made me think back to Bears Lions when I was little. And I was just thinking man, having Barry and even other guys Herman Moore was sick, but they were just never able to really put consecutive years together or really have a good team. And that continued for all jokes aside, forever, even going into Stafford. Stafford is breaking his shoulder and still playing, and it doesn't matter. You have Calvin Johnson and it still doesn't matter. And Calvin kind of, I don't want to but kind of goes the way of Barry Sanders, where it's just I can't do it anymore. I'm beaten down. I don't want to play football anymore. I'm out. And the Dan Orlovsky running out of the end zone, just all the bad. It's been so much bad.
Yeah.
And to juxtapose that with the season last year, I think I think a lot of people were caught in the emotion or the nostalgia of it, of good for the Lions. It's so fun that they're doing good.
Yeah.
But when you actually, and I'm not saying everybody thinks this way, but actually watching them, they are, or especially last year too, though, so talented and so schematically sound. They probably should have won the NFC and went to the Super Bowl with how that game went against the Niners. And I think now in this season, like the emotion and like the, oh, that's cute, like good for them, nostalgia has kind of worn off. And I think people are realizing this probably is the best team in football. Like they're nasty with what they've added on defense. The offense is just an absolute buzzsaw, which I'm sure we'll talk about in this episode. Like, how does it feel as a person who knows football and likes the sport of football, but who also loves the Detroit Lions? Like, what does it feel like to be in this spot where your team is like, they're not invincible, but where they just look like they can just dominate anyone at any moment at any time? And it's not because like the Bills recently, it's been a lot of like Josh Allen and great stuff from him. And then they've had good players along the way, but the Lions are just talent and scheme and just a buzzsaw. Like, what is that like as a person who covers ball, knows it, but is also a Lions guy, tried and true from the time you were little?
Right. It's weird, man. I mean, it really is weird because to everything that you said to that point of like Dan Orlovsky running out of the back of the end zone and Calvin Johnson making great catches and then it not being marked touchdowns at Soldier Field, like just so many different things that have come up over the years. The Aaron Rodgers Hail Mary and the pass back and forth kind of thing with Jim Caldwell, and just there's been so many things over the years. The number 1 picks, the number 2 picks, the number 3. I mean, just the list goes on, and it's just awesome. I mean, it's really different. But like there were some games this year, like in the past, we would play Jacksonville or the Titans and be like, man, I don't know what to expect for Sunday. Could be pretty competitive. Those are pretty good teams, whatever. And then it's like you put the game on and they're up 50-7 and you're like, what is going on? Like, it's just, I don't want to say you get bored with it because these close games like take a lot out of me as just a fan. Like last week I was stressing. I think my family saw a different side of me that they're probably not used to seeing. Because I'm passionate about it. I love this team. I've always loved them. I mean, every day in 3rd grade, I wore a Lions hat every single day.
Awesome.
I love this football team. I'm very fortunate to be able to cover the team and watch it the way that I'm able to watch it and everything that's involved with it. Doing the draft last year with Lomas Brown, who's a Lions legend, and just like picking his brain a little bit and hearing the things that he was, doing back in the 90s and the things that they had to go through. And it's awesome. I mean, the city deserves it. The fans deserve it. And I think that's why like a lot of comments are probably showing up. I used to be able to see the comments. I don't see them anymore because I'm in here kind of as a guest, but I think the fans of Bills Mafia are going to look at it and be like, yeah, I'm going to sit back, obviously want my team to win, but I'm going to just sit back and enjoy 2 good football teams. And I feel like I've met a lot of Bills fans over the years that are like indifferent about the Lions because we both as fans have been through a lot of the same stuff, like the ups and the downs. And I think I said this a little bit last year to you, probably in Mobile and probably to the rest of the Cover One guys, like the way I saw you guys respond to when the Bills were getting good and got Josh Allen and Sean McDermott and the things and the pieces started coming together. Like I still remember talking to Eric about certain things in Mobile in our very first Airbnb about the Bills and like the change of the culture. And then last year being able to do it with you guys is awesome. And then sitting here today with Christmas trees up, you got one right behind you. I got one next to me. I got the Christmas stuff up, and it's just like, man, it's awesome. We're blessed. We got a good football game coming up. I can't wait to break it down.
Yeah. And everything you said, so well said. And I made a note of this. Thank you very much for being here, Carl. You're a continuous supporter of myself, the brand. Thank you very much for being here. And thank you very much for the super chat. And Carl says, Merry Xmas, Anthony and Russ. If there are ever 2 organizations and fan bases that deserve to get a Lombardi trophy, it is the Lions and the Bills. We meet in the Super Bowl and one of us is going to get it! Exclamation point, exclamation point. Very nice, Carl. I like how you put that through. And yeah, I think that kind of piggybacks, Russ, on what you were saying, just like the journey these teams have been on and like the fans that the Lions, I always think of the Saints with this, but like the Lions always like, I just remember like fans in November having like the paper bag over their head with like games and just like the running jokes. And even too, like Dan Campbell comes along And everybody's like mocking Dan Campbell. Like this guy's out here biting kneecaps and he's like double fisting like extra large coffees. And they're just like, dude, this guy, who is this guy? He's just like a rowdy tight end. Like
Yeah.
everybody thinks he's a meathead. And then he's out here just building this. Obviously he knows like the X's and O's, but I think he's another guy that the culture that he's built, like you watch, and I've said it like on Twitter, and I feel like people think I'm joking. Like I watch like a Dan Campbell like pregame speech or like postgame thing in the locker room, and I am like, whatever you need me to do, like I'm ready. Like you got me. Like and what's cool, I think also with it is, and who was I watching? I saw an interview, I think with Rondé or Tiki Barber, and I forget who else. And they were talking about Dan Campbell, and whoever was interviewing him, they were like, yeah, but isn't he like, what he says is kind of corny and like this and that. And they were like, yeah, it is, but that's who he is. He's authentic. Like there's no, like, he's not trying to drum up the guys. Everything he says, whether it's corny or whether it's not, like
That's what he believes.
Yes, it's what he believes. And you can see that, like the post-game pressers, like not pressers, like locker room stuff, when he says something and everybody like claps up, it's not just like, yeah, like everybody like feels it. Like they buy in. Like when he's giving somebody a game ball, it's not just like, yeah, congrats. Like they're all about it. Like you can see the buy-in and the belief in this team. And so many of those dudes like reflect his mentality and how he built this team. And I think how they built the team from the ground up, as just an organization where, I mean, obviously, like coming from having failure after failure in a multitude of ways, but the job I think that he and Brad Holmes did in rebuilding the roster from a player standpoint, but also from a culture standpoint, has just been unreal to see. And then seeing that now translate on the field and how much of a juggernaut they are, it's just wild, like to see, like what they've become. Like it's nuts to me.
Yeah, no, it is. And I've always like, I hate when they play on Sunday nights or Thursday nights. I enjoy the primetime games, but I hate it because I get super amped up for the game and then I can't sleep. And then I'm patiently waiting for the post game locker room speech. And when it drops, I then definitely can't sleep because like, I'm a team guy. I buy in. If I'm in, I'm in, and I'm bought in. And I just see the things that he says, like in the locker room, like you mentioned, like calling out Dan Skipper the other day, like, yeah, just keep throwing up Skip or whatever the hell you're doing over there. And it's just,
he's always calling him out, like anytime he has to fill in, because Decker's always getting banged up. And I think of one last year too, post game. He's just like, "Where's Skip? Skip!" Everybody's like, "Yeah, Skip."
Yeah, and it's just I love it, and I'm like, man, I would pay a ungodly amount of money to be in that locker room before the game and even after the game, just to hear the things that he has to say, because like it's a true thing. Like I genuinely think if he told me to run through a wall, I think I would. And I've never even truly met the guy. Like I asked him a question in Mobile and that was it. Like I never got an opportunity to like fully talk to him. Other Lions coaches I did, and some Lions scouts I've had opportunities to talk to and stuff. But yeah, I mean, everybody I've ever spoken with talking about Dan Campbell, he's a true dude. He's a genuine dude. He truly believes what he's preaching. And I think that's why this culture has changed in Detroit so much, and why they've won 12 games, why they've won 11 in a row. And it's certainly not going to be a game like where I'm walking into this podcast thinking like, oh yeah, we're going to mop the floor with the Bills. Like I know we have our work cut out for us. And I really told people, like family and friends, I'm like, the next two games, talking Packers and Bills, I'm like, this is the Lions season. Like it is down to these two games. If they win both of them or split them or whatever happens, it really determines what's going to happen in a couple of weeks when the playoffs begin. So I obviously wish the Bills all the best as we get ready to preview this matchup. But yeah, I can't wait. I cannot wait for Sunday.
Man, yeah, it's such a good, like, I had this one circled preseason just because of what I thought the Lions
I think we talked in like May about it.
Yes. Yeah, we were like pumped and hyped for it, and I think it's really going to deliver on what it is. And I'm super annoyed. I've been looking for and I don't remember what the keyword was or what I typed. I was looking for a Dan Campbell. It was just like a clip, and it was like a montage of like things that Dan Campbell has said. And one of the things that he said was something about like it was something along the lines of like scratching and clawing or like dragging someone down to hell or like killing you slowly or something that I was
Dragging to the
just
depths.
yes,
We're gonna do
that's
enough
it.
to bury you.
Yes, that is the one. Like where it was like a 50-second clip. And I'm actually like looking it up now. So I'm pretty sure like I quoted it and typed out like what he
Yeah.
said. Yes, Dan Campbell. Like, oh, this is a quote because yeah. So it's like a 59-second video, like a montage of things that he says, and it's filled with a bunch of awesome superlatives and great stuff. But the thing that I quoted was him saying, "quote because we'll tread water as long as it takes to effing bury you."
Yeah.
And I was just like, yes, like if Samoa Joe was a coach, it would be Dan Campbell. And that's what I love. Like, I just like his promos are
what a comp.
Right. Like everything Samoa Joe says, like you believe, like you're like, he's really going to kill that guy. Like it's going to be like, and I just feel that way with Dan Campbell. And it's just,
dude, he's hitting muscle busters on everybody.
Bro, right? And just like coquina clutches on everybody. Yeah, because we'll tread water as long as it takes to effing bury you. Doesn't that sound like something Samoa Joe would say in like a promo or like, yeah, it just fits. And yeah, I'm pumped.
That's a great poll.
Yeah, thank you. Well, you hit it for me. I couldn't remember the keywords, and I knew if I said it, you'd get it. Yeah, it's I'm pumped for you. You and I are boys, and it's awesome to see how pumped you are. Even especially with comparison to like I remember how sad you and Fabes were in Mobile, like after that NFC Championship, and I know, like, and it's Mobile week. Like I felt how sad you were then. So I'm pumped for you, but just as like even just selfishly as a football fan, watching Lions tape, the Lions are one of like 3 or 4 teams who I've watched pretty much every single game of this year, offensively and defensively on the all 22, aside from the Bills. It's been the Lions, it's been the Cardinals, it's been the Rams, and then I've mixed in like different pieces of like some Viking stuff, some Chief stuff, some Niner stuff, a bunch of different things. But the Lions are just such a good schematic watch, and it feels good, like emotionally, to see them succeed for the fan base and for you. But yeah, just it's awesome to see where they are. And God, I love that quote from Dan Campbell so much. Like if I want to get it like put on something or get a whiteboard and write it and put it behind me, but like I'm not like if I was a Lions podcaster, like that would 100% be on my wall, like a giant. It might just be that behind me. That's such a
revealing my office, man. Quit revealing
it. Do it. It's such a baller quote. It just sets the tone. Like it's man, so good. Anything else on the Lions before we dive into kind of the matchups of this game that we think will decide everything?
No, I think, I think we'll probably hit on everything that you got kind of lined up for the show tonight. So, obviously injuries are always a key thing. Can't get a bunch of defensive players back, but Taylor Decker would probably be the big one offensively to really keep an eye on. And then, obviously defensively, where's Aleem McNeil, Levi Ozarike, Josh Paschal? What's the health with those guys if they come back? I certainly think that helps the Lions a ton with trying to stop Josh Allen and James Cook in the rushing attack. But one, I'm very glad that Buffalo finally started to establish a rushing attack, because I've been talking about that for like 2-3 years with you guys of like, they need to start running the ball. It can't be the Josh Allen show. Obviously he's very successful, very good, but James Cook finally got going, and it's definitely paying off for him.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, and the injuries, I'm sure, is something we'll talk about. I want to grab this comment real quick because I have an answer. Pops Mafia. What's up, Pops? Oh, Pops, I saw your DM. I have to get back to you on Twitter. I apologize. That's on me. I've had a hectic week. He says, what wrestler is Sean McDermott? I got a comp, but it's early. Early Kurt Angle. Pure technicality, great athlete, but not yet like the charismatic character that he was as he went on, because McDermott isn't that like over the top and that great of a promo like Angle was later in his career. But early Kurt Angle was just this great, technically sound, actual wrestler, but was athletic enough to get it done. So my comp for Sean McDermott is early Kurt Angle.
Not Perk Angle. Kurt Angle with hair.
yeah, not Perk Angle. Like early Kurt Angle on the win streak. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
That guy was nuts. No, that's a good call out. I would probably go that direction as well with Kurt Angle. That's a good one.
There's got to be someone who's an actual wrestler and like, but who's technical but athletic. Like that's who he is. Like it has to be Kurt Angle for me.
Yeah.
I wanted to go up here
I-
like the great Kali.
maybe right now he's Charlie Haas, and then when he wins
That's
a
what I was
title-
also thinking. I was thinking Charlie Haas or Shelton Benjamin as well.
Yeah.
Like
I always
which-
remember Charlie Haas because he always on his wrist he would write Russ, which was his brother's name. I guess his brother passed away or something like that. I can't remember the exact story, but yeah, I always whenever he'd come to the ring, I was like, why does his wrist say my name? And then
I was waiting for you to be like, that's my name. Yeah.
And I finally looked it up one day.
This is a good one. Steve says, I think McDermott is Daniel Bryan, and everyone overlooks him. I could buy that. Really good technical wrestler as well. Kind of gets overlooked. Consummate underdog type of dude. Well, that's a good one from Steve.
Yeah, huge fan base behind him too. That's pretty good. I like that.
Pops is super upset at the Bills special teams coach, Smiley, and he says, Coach Smiley is Doink the Clown. That's crazy. Doink is super underrated, though. Doink's character was ahead of its time. Like, if Doink was around right now, he'd hit, like, so hard. Like, he would be.
And he kind of carried him through some tough spots back in the day in the 90s. So,
yeah, that was the rough time. Everybody had a gimmick, and everybody's gimmick was like a job, like Duke the Dumpster Drosy and the Repo Man and all these weird things. As a kid, I was like, these are great. And I watch it back now, and I'm like, yikes.
Yeah, Dan Campbell's Samoa Joe meeting the Undertaker. Just what it is. We're gonna bury you. You know,
that's exactly. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I kind of like the idea of Samoa Joe and the Undertaker gimmick. Like, I like that idea, like that merging.
Samoa Taker.
Oh yeah, that's good. That's good. I was gonna say the under Samoan. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I like it. I like it. All right, let's pivot. Critical elements, matchup pieces that will decide Bills versus Lions. You folks know. If you not, I guess you'll find out. Regularly watch the show. What we're going to do, myself and Russ, each going to go back and forth with our top 3 matchup pieces that we think will decide Bills versus Lions. It could be a variety of things. It could be something structural, schematic, X's and O's. It could be a player versus another player. It could be a coach. It could be an entire side of the ball. It could be as wide scale or as small and granular as we want and as we choose. Russ, you are the guest. I don't know your answers. You don't know mine. Everybody watching live, feel free to put whatever answers you got into the chat. Let us know your thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, super chats get priority like Carl's did earlier. Feel free to let us know if you think our answers are terrible or if you just want to vent because you're still upset of how the Bills defense played against the Rams. Whatever your poison, feel free to pick it into the chat. Russ, the floor is yours. What do you got for your first point?
Yeah, I mean, point number 1 for me, just looking at the Lions defense. I mean, like I mentioned, ton of injuries to the defense. I think at one point in the first half last week, they had 17 or 18 players play a snap on defense, which is kind of unheard of when you bring 11, you carry probably 25, maybe 24 defensive players, and then obviously 24 or 25 offensive players, and then you got your 3 specials. So I think when you look at Detroit, they're mixing and matching almost the entire roster that they have available to try to put something together on the field. But this has really led them to be a little bit more blitz heavy. And I think that's going to be one of the key points for me is can these blitzes get home? And not even so much the blitz rate. I mean, according to match quarters going through week 13, the Lions blitzed a total of 26.1% of the time, which was only 17th in the league. But when you look at Buffalo, they only blitzed 19.8% of the time. So definitely there's a bit of a difference. But I think the bigger part is the pass stunt rate. So we know that Josh Allen is going to probably throw the ball 30, 40 times. I mean, that's just what he averages, right? So they're going to do a bunch of line stunts up front because they don't have that true predominant edge rusher like Aiden Hutchinson anymore. They have Zadarius Smith, but he's more power than speed, and he can certainly mix and match things, but he's not going to get home every single time. That physical play, it just doesn't always get there. So they do a lot of TE stunts. They'll twist with, both defensive tackles. They'll bring a linebacker. So they're always kind of mixing and matching, and they do these pass stunt rates 33.5% of the time, second most in the NFL. The Bucks are the most at 34.1% of the time, according to this data through week 13. It hasn't been updated yet for week 14. So either way, I think the Lions, it's going to be very key to get home on some of these stunts. And really, how are you able to contain Josh Allen when you're, doing these stunts? There were times that they did it early in the game against the Packers, and Jordan Love tucked it and ran. And Jordan Love has not been as mobile as we've probably thought. A lot of that is because of the knee injury and things like that he suffered earlier in the year. So Josh Allen, we all know, is going to run it. Can the Lions contain him a little bit? And that's what I'm looking for the Lions defense. How much can they contain him? And I think the addition of Jamal Adams will pay off in a big way, probably this week, just simply because he looked really comfortable through the minimal snaps that he had. So I think that's one of the big things is getting him going. And then obviously Jack Campbell and the consistent pieces that they have had on defense. Can they hold it down to keep Josh Allen in front of them?
You think Brian Branch is going to play?
I think so. I know there's been some stuff that kind of came up with like cramping, potential foot and ankle stuff. I think he will end up playing just because of kind of the circumstances and how big this game is. It's kind of a marquee game. And he kind of seems to show up and turn out for those types of games. Not saying he turns it off for the lower, level games.
No, yeah.
But he's definitely been playing hurt for, I think, a little while because his play has dipped a little bit. He hasn't been around the football as much. He's had a couple of inconsistencies, whether it be with breaking up passes or, making tackles in the open field. He's still a very big hitter, and he does a phenomenal job with what he's doing. But at the same time, it's like you can tell he's playing, with something. But I think he'll play. I haven't seen much of anything hinting at him not playing unless something comes up probably between, maybe tomorrow or Friday.
That's fair. You kind of touched on it a bit with his injury stuff. Like I thought, so the first, I don't know, like 5, 6, 7 weeks, like if I had a vote, like right then I would be like, Brian Branch for like defensive player of the year. He's making plays on the ball in the pass. He's coming up and fitting the run, doing a bunch of like the nickel apex stuff he was doing at Bama, but actually playing like actual safety, single high end post. And his versatility gives them his versatility gives them such a good matchup piece against tight ends, against slot dudes, but then being able to come up and match in a variety of ways, tackle, play coverage. And then that ties into, I knew they were the highest, but I just wanted to confirm the highest rate of cover one on the year. So you're looking at your single high man coverage, 40% on this year, according to Football Insights. The Jags are second at 34%. Especially too when you talk about like those stunts and the blitzes that they're running and what they want to do, like Aaron Glenn and that defense, like man coverage, let's get physical, let's attack up front. The Bills, prior to getting Amari Cooper, struggled against single high in general. They just could not get anybody who could win outside or who could win one-on-one, get down the field, or just win one-on-one in the outside period in some way, shape, or form. But getting Cooper, that helped a little bit. He looked good again against the Rams. I mean, as did the Bills offense for a majority of the game. We'll see if they get Keon Coleman back. We'll see if they get Dalton Kincaid back. But so much of like the injuries on both sides of the ball, like the Bills offense, depending on who plays for them, how close to 100% are they? And then a similar conversation happening for the Lions as well. Like who plays for them? How close to 100% are they? I also think, I know it's talked about a bit, but like for where this team is, overall, just being like sitting there at now 12-1 now, yep. And how good their defense has been on the year, but even now, like sitting here, like the Lions defense, they're third in DVOA, first in DVOA against the pass, sixth in DVOA against the run. They are first in terms of like being best against the pass at EPA per pass per next gen stats at negative 0.2. And they've done all this while like Hutchinson goes down, and Davis has missed some time, and McNeil missed some time, then Anzalone goes down, and Marcus Davenport has been out. Like, and all these guys, yes, like all these dudes that they brought in or have been like cultivating and building up have gone down. And you see some cracks in the armor, like, and you have more as the season's gone along, but to see where they are still from an advanced metric standpoint, and then even the tape, like it really, again, is another kudos to Campbell and even Aaron Glenn to a degree as well. And the players that they have there being a kind of next man stepping up, which is exactly what you'd expect from Dan Campbell, right? Somebody goes down and he's literally going to be like, all right, bro, grab your helmet. Like, go get it. Like, we need you to go get it. Which is very similar to kind of what the Bills have done under McDermott. I like that point from you as your leadoff. I wonder how so much of this game is focused on the other side of the ball, like the Lions offense versus the Bills defense. But I do wonder, like you said, like that exact point, and it was one that I was going to make, like, how do they contain Allen given what they are up front from an injury standpoint, what they are from a coverage standpoint, and then the Bills' weapons health mixed within that? having Coleman, having Kincaid, if they both play, what kind of level do they play at? How much do they work the run game off of it? Because the Bills offense can put a defense into a bind kind of similarly to what the Lions can do. But depending on how banged up both sides are, it's going to be really, really, I think it'd be really tough, or swing the pendulum significantly one way or the other on that side of the ball.
No, and I agree. And you mentioned, the cover 1 stuff, the cover 3 stuff, very similar, I think, between, the Rams as far as the tendencies of running those coverages over the years under Aaron Glenn. I felt that kind of similarities between the Rams and the Lions as far as the amount of times they run cover 1 and cover 3. But I will say one thing that the Lions have done a little bit different this year, and I've been preaching it for a long time, was running a little bit more cover 2. Now, they don't run it as much as, Buffalo does, but, according to Match Quarters through week 13, the Lions ran it at 14.2% of the time. So I think they've just become more versatile with their defense, which is why you're seeing the increase in the analytics of where they're ranked and seeing them go from the bottom or the middle towards the top, and they become just more consistent. They bend, they don't break. They'll hold you to 3. They're fine with it because they know at any point, it just feels like at any point they know, okay, our defense can make a stop, get us the ball back, and we're going to go down and get a touchdown. And it's just how it feels. So I really am curious how that's all going to, shape up, what type of coverages they are going to run because of obviously Josh Allen and what he presents them with, his ability to move and chuck it deep and take things underneath. I mean, Shakir could have a huge game for fantasy people or people that want to bet it, which I know you're going to, do your BetUS stuff later. But yeah, I really think this is a huge matchup for how the Lions want to play coverage and how they, mix and match what they want to do in that part of it. And then just moving to the offense, I don't know if we're going that direction, but looking at the offense, looking at Taylor Decker, like I mentioned, is he going to play in this game? I feel like the offense plays so much better when he's healthy, but Dan Skipper has stepped up in a big way.
Yeah, he hasn't been bad at all. Like, not a vulnerability. And that's saying something, considering like Decker is a good left tackle and a good offensive lineman in general. So the fact that you can have Skipper come in and mitigate that is a testament to him.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing is, Skipper, the first game was, that he started, he didn't play great. And then the second game, which was last week, I think there was 40 snaps in pass pro for him. I think he gave up 1 pressure, no sacks. And I think he really only had 1 missed block, and he got called for holding on it. And it was kind of like that outside zone play. I'm not a huge fan of when the Lions try to get outside the tackle box. I feel like they're at their best running gap and power and things like that, duo, whatever it may be. I love when they really run the football between the tackles, behind the big bodies, and not trying to get those bodies out in space all the time. Penei Sewell getting out in space every once in a while, it's fine. But I just love running behind, Zeitler and Ragnow and Glasgow and those guys. So I think that's the other thing with Taylor Decker potentially being out for this game. Do we see, more 12 and 13 personnel from the Lions? Are we going to see that from them as we've seen over the course of time? I mean, Ben Johnson's very creative with how he gets with his personnel groupings, but Sam Laporta has finally kind of, I don't want to say broke out of the shell, but he really seemed limited for the start of the season and really the first 2 months of the season. And I wrote an article on Lions Wire about what was wrong with Sam Laporta, and he kind of came together and seemed to figure it out last week. So we'll see if that continues. And if he does, I think that helps get some of the other tight ends on the field to present, I think, different types of mismatches and kind of keep the Bills defense guessing, which we know the Bills are going to bring it. They're going to bring pressure. They're going to mix and match different things. I mean, for me, the player I'm watching on the Bills defense outside of obviously, Von Miller and stuff like that, Greg Rousseau, man, what a pick he has been for them so far this year. He seems to really be putting it together every single time I watch a Bills game. He's the one really stepping out, I thought, defensively up front.
Yeah, I think he's had a good year. I think some of the conversation around him is a bit hyperbolic based on the stats.
Yeah.
And the stats are based on some really good production in several games as opposed to consistently being a terror. And I mean that more from a passer standpoint. Against the run, you and I have had this conversation before too, and I've said this so many times on the show, Rousseau is arguably the best run defending edge in all of football. Like, he's one of the best run defenders on the defensive line in general, defensive tackle, edge, defensive end, however you want to qualify him, like, or quantify him. He's absolutely tremendous.
Yeah, and that's huge for what the Lions do when they want to establish the run. I mean, we know how they mix and match with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery.
And I love your point of kind of like what you want to see from the Lions offense. And, that's kind of, I lead into kind of like my first point here. Like, the main thing I'm really watching for is the Bills run defense against the Lions rush offense. But from a perspective that, and this was really put on display against the Rams, and it's been put on display a bunch this year, but I think it's gotten overblown. The Bills have been displaced, usually from a vertical standpoint. Like, if you get downhill on them, like, especially their second wave of interior guys, you can really blow them off the ball. The Rams had a bunch of success with this, really just two simple ways. Like, they're running duo, and then they're running split zone, but it's not like horizontal, let's stretch you, cut back split zone. It's like downhill inside zone, split zone. And they're just getting, yes. And they're just getting Avila and Bo Limmer are getting like downhill. Dotson's getting downhill. Havenstein's getting downhill. And they're just blowing dudes off the ball, right? The Bills in that game against the Rams, they started to course correct a little bit as the game went on against the run. But it was just because of numbers. They were either run blitzing or they were gapping out. That's where the Bills majority of the time find success against the run. So if there's 7 guys attached to the line, they need to have 8 dudes in the box, because if there's 7 guys attached to the line, that means there are 8 gaps. There's 8 gaps. It's not just enough for them to have body on body. Like, they have to have enough bodies to account for each gap, because they're not getting enough one-on-one wins, especially on that defensive line, and especially with the second group of dudes. Because if you're not gapped out and it's hat on a hat, or even worse, if you're playing with a light box and they've got more bodies than you on the offensive side, someone's got to win a matchup to either penetrate and cause havoc, or you got to play gap and a half. You're trying to string it out, let the safeties come from depth, or your corners come up as force players, rally to the football, population of the ball, all that kind of stuff. The Bills' course correction for the run, and how a lot of games have gone for them, is usually kind of get blown off the ball early. Offense runs all over you a little bit. You course correct, start to bring more run blitzes, maybe some stunts, but usually it's just numbers. Guys in the box as is, or guys in the box and you're run blitzing and kind of attacking from there. That's what they did against the Rams. Mm-hmm. But if you do that against the Lions, or if you do that against the Rams, offenses that can run the ball but also pass the ball the way that the Rams and the Lions can, you start to get into a real world of hurt. And the Lions, with what they can do with Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams and Sam Laporta, and even, Tim Patrick had a rep against Stokes in the low red zone for his second touchdown, I believe, where they go play action, but he stacks Stokes and then shakes him and separates across the middle of the end zone, and he's just wide open. Like, it's such a beautiful route. And I thought they lost something a little bit when Reynolds left in the offseason. I like the addition of Tim Patrick, even though he's not the same guy he was when he was healthy in Denver, but he's still a good fit because of his size, his frame, his run blocking, and what he does in conjunction with, the Sun God and JMO and Laporta. This isn't an offense where you can just be like, well, we're going to run blitz to stop the run, or we're going to play a ton of single high because we're, afraid of getting gouged. Okay, cool. You're going to play a ton of single high. Can you defend regularly on the outside? What happens when you get the play action game involved? The main thing I'm watching for, is that Bills run defense without gapping out, without run blitzing. And, you spoke on it a little bit. That Lions run game is so diverse. Like, they can go any gap you want. Any gap scheme, they can run it. Oh, yeah. Any type of zone scheme, they can run it. But for me, like you said, they are at their best with give me some counter, give me some power, give me duo, give me inside zone, give me the downhill stuff, give me the stuff that's designed to like puncture and push, or even similar plays on the first touchdown for the Lions. I think the first Montgomery touchdown was very similar to the 4th down play late. It was like kind of like an outside zone, but an outside like lead type of zone. Yeah. And they brought Laporta in motion, and they just mashed the hell out of the outside while also down blocking, just created an alley. Like, give me everything that hits between the tackles or hits between the tight ends. Mash mash. You mentioned Zeitler and Glasgow and Ragnow. All those names sound like great offensive lineman names, and then they're good on top of it. But the Bills, because they can get displaced, like, give me that. Like, if I'm the Lions, I'm just trying to run downhill and create displacement. And then you can also get into the fun stuff, like the one play to Amon-Ra, they run like the fake toss GT counter, and Goff is doing the spinner like they're running friggin' wing T. But then they can also run like then they're also running like tackle long trap with Panay. They can do dart, like they can get to everything in the run game.
Yeah, and
it's such a problem.
And they've done that, in the red zone a bunch, like over the years, especially these last 2 years. I mean, they get so creative in certain spots, and there's definitely times with the red zone where I think Ben Johnson gets a little too cute, gets a little too pass happy, and most times it's we're inside the 10, we're inside the 5, just nut up, we're running right at you 4 straight times. If we don't get in, we don't deserve to score. Like, that's the mindset. So,
which is awesome.
I think, buckle up for that. That's probably going to happen if they get in those situations. But yeah, I mean, they get very creative and they, fake these run fakes so well. And Jared Goff is at his best when he's able to get play action and fake the run and just kind of change direction with his shoulders and his eyes. He'll manipulate defenders by looking this way and then quickly turning this way, and Amon-Ra's wide open. And then to kind of further your point to what you said earlier about, getting guys in the gaps with the Bills defense. And, if you got 6-7 gaps, you got, X amount of defenders down there, it does free up guys like Amon-Ra and Sam Laporta and Tim Patrick, who has been a phenomenal ad. And, the city of Detroit is so happy for him to get those 2 touchdowns. Just to get one, they've been trying for weeks to get him a touchdown. So I think they're obviously going to try to continue that and keep him going. But he's huge over the middle of the field. And that would be my next point of something that's, I think, pretty big and something to really pay attention to. The Lions are very adamant in the passing game of hitting the middle of the field with dig routes and dagger concepts and even some crossers to JMO. So they're going to want to wear you down with different types of runs and take you down. And then they're going to want to open it up with this passing attack over the middle of the field. And they're going to get safeties to bite and linebackers to bite on the run game. And those receivers and tight ends are going to be open in the middle of the field. And sometimes it leads to JMO running for 70 yards. And other times it's just a big gain on 2nd and 15 for a gain of 17. It's just, they're able to get it in any type of way. And even if it's 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, just be prepared for those runs because they're going to run the football. When in doubt, they're running it. So I think those are key things for Bills fans to really start kind of expecting for Sunday.
I love the play action point that you mentioned. It ties even a little bit to the run game stuff. Like, when their run game starts working, it's good enough in a vacuum because they can run the ball, but then it ties into the play action game. And Goff is just so clinical on play action. And the timing of everything is just so well structured, so on point. And you said it, like he's dropping like, turns, play, run fake, 5-step drop, turns. Here comes Amon-Ra on a dig, bang. Here comes Laporta on a dig, bang. Like, there were multiple, in breaking routes. I think they were both digs to Sam Laporta in this game. One early where Laporta breaks and Quay Walker comes to cut him off. So Goff fires it to Laporta's back shoulder. So like Laporta's running to Quay and Goff throws it. So he has to go back here and he catches it and it's beautiful. Then later in the game, I think the 3rd or 4th quarter, Laporta's running a dig, this time from the other side, from left to right. I think he's got a corner on him or a safety. Laporta does his thing, bangs into him, separates with physicality at the top of the route, but the corner's still there. Goff throws it away, and then Laporta goes full extension, reaches out and makes the catch. Like, they can just gouge you with that run game in and of itself, and then the play action game on top of it. They had the highest rate of play action on the year this year at 38.5%. The Colts are second at 32%. So they're 6.5 percentage points ahead of the number 2 team, which is a significant. Which is
why, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Which is wild with the Colts. The fact that you said the Colts second, I didn't realize they were second.
You're going to say what I was going to say about the Colts. Go ahead.
I can't believe that because of how up and down the Colts offense has been this year and how inconsistent Anthony Richardson has been and just how poor at times he has played.
Yeah. And I also wonder too, the other thought I had with that is like Flacco being in there, so a bunch of play action. But then also like I wonder how much like RPO Richardson stuff gets classified as play action. So that probably inflates it. So the Lions being that much ahead of them is just funny. And then you could say that, be like, yeah, well, they run a ton of play action, like, but are they good off the play action? They're fifth in EPA per pass on play action at 0.32. Just what they're able to do with that run game, mash you, stretch you, speed, physicality, and also too like the running backs, Sonic and Knuckles, which is the best nickname in like all of sports.
Did you see those cleats?
Yes, they're so dope.
Dude, those things are sick, man.
They're so sick. Like all the merch for them, like what they wear, like what they sell off, like off the field is just so dope. In a multitude of ways. Yeah, they're crushing it. What I love with, I mean, they're both good in and of themselves, but what I love with both of them is I think they each do a little more of what the other one does than gets like credited for. Like Sonic and Knuckles moniker, and then their skill sets. Everybody's like, well, Gibbs is pure speed and Montgomery is the hammer. Montgomery has some of the best jump cuts and feet in the NFL, like at the running back spot. And then Gibbs, contact balance and speed. He's running through arm tackles and shoulders, like just like he did at Bama, a little less than he did it a little bit at Tech, did it more at Bama, has continued to do it in the NFL. Like he's not just pure, like, no disrespect to Chris Johnson, like CJ2K. Like he wasn't like necessarily breaking a ton of tackles and contact balance. It was speed and burn, and that was fine because he was the fastest dude in the league. Gibbs arguably might be the fastest dude in the league, but he still runs with power and physicality more so. Like he's Sonic, but has more Knuckles in his game than he gets credit for. And Montgomery is Knuckles, but he has more Sonic in his game than he gets credit for. Also as a pass catcher, like what he can do. Somebody mentioned that in the comments, which was a good call. What I think is so terrifying about this offense, and also like is awesome as like a football appreciator, they have so much talent on that side of the ball, right? Gibbs, Montgomery, the Sun God, Laporta, J-Mo, the entire offensive line, which is the best offensive line in football, arguably. If Philly is healthy, it's between them and Philly. But the Lions are super good. Like Sewell, like you have so many all-pro caliber dudes on that side of the ball, right? And they could just beat you with talent.
Yeah.
But they also beat you with scheme. And the fact that they're able to merge and mesh those two, that's what's so terrifying. Like, because you can win with talent or you can win with scheme. They can win with both in either moment of any game, at any point, at any time. They're so diverse in the run game. They're so diverse in the pass game. Like, maybe they're not, Goff doesn't have the best arm in the world, but they're still able to push the ball downfield because of their play action game, the ability to suck in those second level defenders and force you out of too high coverages. And also J-Mo can run by anybody at any moment. Like Amon-Ra is such a good blocker in addition to being one of the best route runners in football. Like so much of what they can do. And that's not even taking into account somebody who I think like as a mismatch creator might be super nerdy. Like Brock Wright does so much for them in terms of like creating mismatches formationally and by alignment. It's just another level. Like there's so many ways they can beat you, and they have the talent, but then they also have like the puppet master and Ben Johnson pulling the strings, and they can beat you schematically. Like the play I mentioned, that like spinner fake toss GT counter against Green Bay to Amon-Ra, like that's some wing T stuff. And that's just like so diabolical and like maniacal that you're doing that. Like, it's just like it's uncalled for, along with like the hook and ladder stuff to like Sewell and just everything. Like this offense is so good, like technically and schematically and timing. But they're also like, they're good with all like I'm sorry, I'm just so like effusive about the praise for them. Like they're good with all like the flashy stuff, but then they're also good at just the basic core tenets of football.
Basic stuff,
like, look how cute like and flashy that play was. Wow, that design was awesome. And then they can just turn right around and be like, now we're gonna run through your face for like 7 plays in a row, and that's just how we're gonna move the football.
Yeah,
it's just terrifying.
Your way of defining the Lions offense sounds like Jim Ross talking about Kane. He's diabolical. That SOB. That's what you said. My God.
That's
but
good.
No, I'm very glad.
Real quick. Keep that thought in your head. Don't lose that thought. I want to ask you this. I saw this comment from Steve, and I didn't want to lose it. Question for Russell. Would you rather have, actually, before we do that, let's
This is
pull,
easy
yeah,
answer.
fair. What's your answer? Easy answer?
Jared
What is it?
Goff all day long. Look,
Wow.
I'm a Matt Stafford guy.
I'm even over prime Stafford?
I'm a Stafford guy till I die, but he was here for what, 11 years? Gave me zero. Nothing.
Oh, damn. It's
He
heartbreaking.
gave me nothing. Jared Goff has been here since
Jared
2011.
Goff has given me everything.
And he gave me a home playoff win, a division championship, things that I've never experienced in my life that I got to do with my kid, with my wife, with my friends. I got to go down to the Senior Bowl and watch it with one of my closest friends, regardless of the outcome and everything that happened that night. Like, to be able to experience that with family and friends, and every single day talking to my dad about the Lions, of what's going on that we've never seen. Jared Goff and Dan Campbell and this team brought me that. Matt Stafford never brought me that. Not discrediting him. He is a Hall of Fame quarterback. He is phenomenal at what he does. I know he's very good, but Jared Goff, whether he's plain black coffee, kind of boring, but he gets the job done every morning for you, whatever you want to label him as, he has rejuvenated his career, and in so many different ways. Like, there was always excuses for Stafford. There was nothing for Jared Goff. He was coming here to have his career die. I mean, that's what it was. And he's brought all of this together, and he's a key part to it. So that'll always, just as a fan in me, and then just the football guy breaking it down, like seeing the differences and watching the way that the offense has changed. It's crazy. Like, there are so many times that I've watched Matthew Stafford in the third quarter get the ball out of the half, 4 or 5 plays, and punt the ball. Jared Goff gets the ball at the half, they go down and score. It's just like, it's different. It's just different with him. And that's why I feel that way. But to go back to my other point, David Montgomery.
Wait, before we do that, before we hit your point, I gotta pull up a thing.
We're good.
I gotta pull up our thing from our friends at BetUS real quick. So yeah, I see your excitement there. So our friends over at BetUS, you folks know the deal. I like this graphic. Russ, I want to get your thoughts on it before we get back to Bills Lions, because this is Bills related as well. So BetUS, they had a vote. I'm not putting the numbers up there. I don't want to spoil anything for everyone, but they have this graphic for voting for the play of the season. And the two options are, I guess this is like the Josh Allen to Amari Cooper, like hook and ladder play that was off, like not an actual hook and ladder, but kind of like off script.
Improvised,
against the 49ers, which is nuts. Like, it's behind Amari Cooper. He one-hands it, catches it, pitches it to Allen. Allen turns the corner, dives, touches, beautiful. Is that the play of the season, or is it Saquon Barkley's like backwards reverse hurdle against the Jags?
As cool as the hook and ladder, the improvised play was, I don't know if there's a single play that's going to beat Saquon Barkley's. I mean, that might be, honestly, that might be one of the 5 best plays ever. Like, honestly, the way he did that, and the snap of the finger, and just, I mean, what a freak. And if the Lions have to play them in the NFC Championship, I'm excited for it, but or in the playoffs, I guess. I am dreading it a little bit because of Saquon, but that play is just remarkable.
So there's obviously a lot of like fun stuff with both. Like, the aesthetic of the Josh Allen one really gets me. It's nighttime, the snow, it looks beautiful. It was improvised and like crazy. Like, that play is obviously awesome. I'm also voting for Saquon here because that play is just like, I've never seen that.
That's what I mean.
Ever.
Like, crazy.
That's it. That's all it is. Like, I've seen not necessarily this kind of like hook and ladder play, but like, I've seen this. The Lions have done it. Like, I've seen this kind of happen. Like, granted, the off-script nature and improvised nature of it was awesome. How Allen finished it was awesome. The snow and all of these things, like, was wild. But I've never seen someone jump backwards and go over and like, look at that graphic. Nails it. The defender Barkley is jumping over it's not like, the dude went at Barkley's knees and Barkley jumped him. Like, dude is almost standing straight up and Barkley like verted over him. Like, that's unreal. Like, that's nuts. And so I think I also think these are two good. Like if I had to vote for play of the season, like these two are definitely up there. I just don't know if anything is touching Saquon. Like again, like I've never seen that in college. I've never seen it in high school. I've never seen it in the NFL, like the XFL, the CFL arena. Like you don't see that. I've never seen it playing pickup in the park. Like I've never seen someone jump backwards and that level of explosion. Yeah, like I would have to vote for Saquon.
I mean, just look at the clearance. I mean, just to have the stones to pull that off. It's just
right. Even that, like to have the stones to attempt it, but then like the athleticism and execution to pull it off, like yeah, I can understand people going either way because there's a lot in favor of the Allen play. And also too kind of working in that favor for Allen, right? It took like multiple people. You had what Cooper did, you had what Allen did, like the synchronization and coordination. But yeah, that's
it's a tough one.
That Saquon play is absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts. And yeah, that graphic presented by our friends at BetUS who provided this, obviously. And if you are looking for a new sportsbook this football season, BetUS is the answer. Fastest payouts in the industry, a 150% bonus on your first deposit, and then a 125% bonus on your next two deposits up to $2,000 with code YouTube150. That's YouTube150. They have a fast and easy deposit and withdrawal process, 24/7 personalized service, 365 days a year, live wagering on all major games, the best betting variety in the business. They allow you to get 10% back on your net losses twice a year. Then they also can give you your very own personal account manager. Check out BetUS for all of your betting needs, especially if you are someone like Russ who bets a lot and bets frequently. All right, Russ,
got one
back then to that conversation. So we were waxing poetically about Goff, about the Lions offense, everything they do. Continue your thoughts on that.
Oh yeah. So David Montgomery, just gotta give him a shine. I didn't want to be the one coming in here kind of boasting about him because I feel like I would be maybe a little biased because of my affiliation with the Lions. But no, I'm glad that you mentioned his ability to jump cut, the vision. Every single week, I have a weekly appreciation post of David Montgomery, and I clip something from the All-22 that catches my eye. Haven't done it yet this week because I have not had a chance to really break down the Lions and Packers game yet. Working through that, but and I'm sure there will be a David Montgomery run in there. Probably be the one on fourth down to kind of steal that game. Talk about stones.
He had another one too. In like the maybe second quarter, another like jump cut. They I forget what the type of run it is, but they get downhill and like he goes to cut left and defender fills it. So he goes to cut right and another defender fills it and he sits, waits for the block and then jumps. And this is all like within the hole. And then he gets out the front door and he's up. There's also, I think it's in the fourth quarter. He upends Isaiah McDuffie on a blitz. And it's actually sweet because McDuffie like lands on his head, but then gets up and heats up Goff. And then Goff with McDuffie bearing down on him just fires it to Amon-Ra on a dig. Like it's a cool play in a multitude of ways. But yeah, Montgomery steps up and buries McDuffie, like cuts him at the knees and full flips him. And like there's just that was my, if I had to clip one Montgomery thing, it's that one.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like just David Montgomery, so underrated. I don't think he gets talked about enough as one of the best running backs in the NFL. I'm not saying he's the best. I'm not discrediting Saquon and other guys across the league, but I just feel like what David Montgomery does for that team, he is truly kind of the engine of the offense. I mean, I get it. The offensive line is kind of that, but his ability to get them going in tough spots when they have tough games on the ground, if they find success, which they normally do most games, it's very rare that they're kind of skunked on the ground. But when they get going, David Montgomery's just super consistent and has key runs on key drives and key parts of the game. So I definitely want to give him a shine because he's definitely a big part of it. But I'm also furthering your point of like how him and Gibbs complement each other so well. And I'm glad that you point out that it's not just all thunder and lightning and speed and power. Like they both take each other's skill set and implement it to their game. And I mean, like there are times where Gibbs will lower his shoulder. He has no problem with that. Montgomery is, I definitely think, faster than most people think he is.
Yes.
Especially in the short areas of the field and that ability to change direction because of his vision and jump cutting ability and those types of things and how strong his lower half is because he's running through initial contact almost every single time. So he's going to get probably 2.5 yards before you make contact. Then he's going to get through that, gain another yard, and then probably make another defender miss and average anywhere between 4 to 5 yards a carry most times. So I think it's really important to mention that because, if Matt Milano, and I get it, it was really snowy and things like that against the 49ers, but he did have a miss I'm sorry, it was against the Rams. I'm sorry. Against Blake Corum.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it happens. It happens to the best of any defender out there, but it's like if Matt Milano's coming through the hole or Taylor Rapp or whoever it is coming down, they're going to have to be prepared for what David Montgomery can do. And the same can be said for the Lions and James Cook. So I don't want this to just be pumping the tires of the Lions. But it's for both sides of the football here. Both defenses are going to have to obviously come prepared for what punch is going to be packed by both offenses, because this is going to be a high power game. I don't know what the total is. The degenerate gambler in me should have probably checked that, but I'm thinking it's probably in the high 40s, and I would have to guess it's probably going to be pretty close to hitting because of just how back and forth I see this game going offensively.
It just hits different with Montgomery, where the speed that he generates in the short area and then being 230 pounds.
Yeah.
It's just like a different thing. And what's also interesting matchup, Milano is still working his way back. And Bernard is tremendous.
Yes.
But Bernard is like 225 or 27 pounds. Like, so Montgomery probably like outweighs him. And so, granted, a lot of dudes outweigh Bernard, but not a lot of running backs nowadays. A lot of running backs are more like the James Cook kind of size and build and frame, as guys have gone for more juice and pass catching ability and route running. It's more of the, not that these guys are the same, but it's more of, the Gibbs and the Cooks, the type of frame and body size. Like Montgomery is very much, I don't want to say a dying breed, but that type of size at the running back position isn't common nowadays. And so I'm also interested of how like that pairs with the run game with this Bills defense that's very much, okay, we'll adjust. You're going to get us. We're going to get you. You're going to gouge us for 7 or 8. You'll gouge us for 12. We're going to penetrate and hit you for, -2, -3, -4, something like that. And as much as I love Jahmyr Gibbs, I really do think this game just speaks to more of a David Montgomery game in terms of just getting downhill and mashing and leaning on that Bills front. Like, considering they don't really have a ton of size or beef on the inside there. Like, just if I'm Detroit, I'm leaning on them. I'm getting downhill. Again, it could be zone. You can go inside zone. Like, you can do fun stuff there, but I'm running like power. I'm running duo. I'm running counter. I'll run some tackle pull stuff, but anything that I can do to create displacement and keep it kind of in between the outside shoulder of each tackle or inside the tight end box, like I'm keeping that. I'm getting downhill, and Gibbs is so fun and so electric, but Montgomery just being that type of hammer, I think is so terrifying for so many teams, and especially as like the nature of NFL defenses. You've gotten smaller, right, at the linebacker spot. You're playing nickel a lot of times, especially if you're the Bills, but just league-wide in general. So when you have this running back who's 230 pounds, it's kind of like a matchup issue. And I think it's funny how like Montgomery has changed the kind of the trajectory of his career in Detroit after being more of an afterthought in Chicago. And I always think back to Montgomery was the one who had that ridiculous graphic coming out of Iowa State where like
dude.
It was, like the feet of Tomlinson, like the vision of Barry's, all like the most ridiculous superlatives. And he's not that, because no one is that. But I'm happy for him after being kind of like a punchline and a joke, and almost being like second fiddle to I remember doing Bears Bills 2 years ago. And the guy that I had on for the Bears, I was talking about David Montgomery, and he was like, no, the best back in Chicago is Khalil Herbert. Like, Herbert has the juice. He's the mover, this and that. Like, that's where Montgomery was. Yeah, and even Charles said it. Yeah, I always remember a funny Montgomery comp coming out of college, and it was like some of the best running back traits. Yeah, 100%. And he was a walking like punchline and meme with that, and now is part of arguably like the best 1-2 combo in Detroit with what they're able to do. Within the passing side of it, this is another like matchup piece that I'm looking for. We've seen it time to time against the Bills defense, especially from the Shanahan tree. Like, so no surprise that the Rams did it. McDaniel's done it. Shanahan, I think, probably would have been able to get to it if the snow wasn't crazy and if there wasn't a ton of injuries and things. But we've seen teams really lean into motion and condensed sets to kind of monkey with the Bills defense in terms of their second level, getting them out of position, creating leverage and space. The Lions very much can operate in that world. And when you look at kind of what they do from a motion standpoint, the Rams, so who the Bills played last week, and obviously had a tough time against the Rams offense. The Rams, they have the second most total plays with motion on the year. The Lions are third. The Lions also have the second most run plays with motion on the year. So a lot of what you see from the Rams in terms of, and I'm bringing this up because it's the most recent game, but also because the Rams just dissected the Bills defense and created a lot of matchup problems. The Lions run game is better than the Rams run game, even though the Rams run game is better than it gets credit for. But you look at that passing game that the Rams had and how they use motion and how they use condensed sets and formations, and everything is about creating leverage and angles and space. The Lions can do that. And the Lions do that. In addition to using motion as like coverage identifiers and tells and all that stuff, but they can just manipulate you in a lot of ways, very similarly to what the Rams do. And they also are towards the top of the league in terms of condensed formations, in terms of formational width and usage. The Rams on the year have the lowest formational width at 19.7. The Niners are second at 20.3. The Lions are third at 20.8. So a lot of what you saw the Rams do to pick apart the Bills defense, the Lions can do, but also probably maybe kind of better from like a personnel standpoint and maybe from a schematic standpoint. I just anticipate seeing a lot of, and that's why I led with the run game stuff, because if you can't stop the run, that's a problem in and of itself. That means you're also probably going to struggle against play action. And that's not even taking into account the regular pass game structure stuff that's built to create leverage and angles and space where they can also take advantage of you. And so that's really what I'm looking at from like a pass game standpoint for really the Lions, obviously pass game, but really offense in general, like leverage and spacing, how they're able to create it, how they're able to manipulate it, and then tying in obviously what they can do formationally, personnel, run game, establishing it, building everything off of that. It's a slippery slope once you get behind that 8 ball. Yeah. And the Bills' struggles against the run, I talked about it earlier, and I've talked about it once on social. A lot of it, I think, has been swept under the rug because it hasn't cost them a game. But a lot of the reasons why it hasn't cost them a game is because game script has forced teams away from it. Like teams will run the ball down the Bills' throat, but then they only get a field goal. And then the Bills get 2 or 3 touchdowns and it's 14-3 or 21-6. And you're like, crap, we got to abandon the run. We got to pass the ball. We can't stick with it. Right. That's not what happened against the Rams. The Rams used that run game to puncture and maul the Bills early on. It led the Bills to a, over 60% single high coverage rate in that game because they're worried about the run. The Bills in the second half against the Rams had over a 70% single high coverage rate in the second half against the Rams. That's crazy high. Yeah. And so if you can't stop that, then you're worrying about further things in the pass game. Like that's a huge one for me. Like how do they deal with another offense that's based on motion, misdirection, leverage, spacing, angles, creating it with personnel, condensed formations, just the overall, philosophy and identity of the offense.
No, and I think you bring up a good point. Like with how they can motion certain guys and condense formations or widen formations out, whether it be pulling a tight end out of the formation and towards the lines, towards the line of scrimmage, towards the sidelines. They love to take those exit motions towards that sideline with Sam Laporta and obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown and even JMO. They get that kind of that running start and it sets up things, whether it be, that dagger concept that we're talking about, or whether it's a spot concept. There's a bunch of different variations that they're going to throw the football off of those motions. But then, as they condense things down, they're going to run it right down, right into your face. And that's what they're going to end up doing, I think, at points in this game. But one thing that the Lions did last week that I have not really talked about, and I didn't talk about it on Twitter or even on my show yet. I haven't had my show yet this week, but over at Detroit Lions podcast, shameless plug.
Nice try. I would say nice plug. Well done.
Shameless. Yeah. And I just like, there were times that Gibbs was really getting going in the passing game. We haven't really seen that much this year, and they started to use him a little bit more in the passing game. I am surprised that the Lions have not really shown a pony personnel at any point over the last 2 years with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. I feel like they could really mix and match putting those guys in the backfield together out of shotgun. The Lions at times last week against the Packers started running out of shotgun a lot more. It seemed like they were trying to hit some outside zone stuff and certain things like that. And that's fine. It's not really who they are, though, especially when they're running to the left. Like if Dan Skipper's there, you're asking him for a lot to get out in space and get out wide and hook a defensive tackle or a linebacker, get to the second level, whatever's happening on that specific play and what you're designing for him to do. But if you get Gibbs and Montgomery in the backfield at the same time, I think it can create obviously mismatches for the linebackers and the safeties, but then you can motion even more. And as you mentioned, motioning and the things that teams are doing with their formations from the 49ers and the Rams, it can make it very problematic for the Bills. So I wonder if the Lions mix and match anything different that we haven't seen, because every week there's a new wrinkle for an NFL offense and an NFL defense. So I am curious what the wrinkle is going to be for the Lions this week. I have no idea because I am not Ben Johnson and I'm not Dan Campbell, but I do like to think about it and I do draw the stuff up and I do just kind of wonder like what direction are they going to go in this game with how they do it. And it wouldn't surprise me at all though if it is kind of, I don't want to say boring, but kind of what we're talking about, just smash mouth football with the Lions offense. But I think you bring up a lot of great points with the motion. And I think the Lions are going to definitely try to motion the Bills to death a little bit with their defense and try to create those mismatches.
I like the under center and shotgun mention that you had, some numbers to put that in perspective for folks. The Lions lead the NFL from a volume standpoint in plays run from under center. They have 475 plays under center this year. That's first in the league. The Minnesota Vikings are second at 390. So 85 more plays, almost like a game and a quarter or a game and a half's worth of plays more under center than the Minnesota Vikings in second. And so that's from a volume standpoint. From a percentage standpoint, over 56% of their plays have come from under center this year. Really meshes, that marrying of the run and the pass. And then you tie it in with condensed formations and personnel and everything they can get to and what they can do. I also wonder from a matchup standpoint, it feels like this is a conversation regularly for Bills fans. It was mentioned a couple, times in the comments. Like if the Lions lean in with, because they do have a similar to last year, but in a different way. Like, they do have like a bigger bodied 11 personnel type of grouping. Like, again, Amon-Ra for being a smaller dude and a great route runner. He's a good blocker. Like, he can dig out a safety nickel. He'll crack. He'll wash down edges. Patrick is in that mold. Reynolds was in that mold last year. Like, they run kind of I don't want to say to the level of the Rams with Puka and Kupp and Demarcus Robinson, but that's what they try to get to with their 11 personnel. But then they can also be in 12 with Laporta and Brock Wright, or like you said, if you want to go 13 and put Zylstra out there. Yep. I wonder how much they lean into like the heavy aspect to try and put the Bills into a bind and be like, hey, we're going to try and make Taron Johnson, who is arguably the Bills' best defender, we're going to try and make him a weak point by running at him with huge tight ends and just trying to mash him and mash him and mash him. Like, I wonder how much of the spread game do we get versus the under center power heavy type of game. Because to tie into what we talked about earlier with the Lions, like they really can operate kind of whatever way they want. I mean, 1 minute they're going with like 13 personnel, condensed heavy, and they're running it down your throat. And then the next play, they're going like empty quads and they're running like a spacing concept with a dig. Like they can just do so much. And I wonder, as much as I love Taron Johnson, I feel like that's the mismatch creator you can get against the Bills defense, which is trying to punish them for being in nickel, even though nickel has been the way for them to kind of punish out like opposing offenses and attack them. Like, I wonder how much of that we get from a personnel standpoint from the Lions.
I think it's a good point, and I'm not necessarily sure what direction they're going to go. I'm sure we're going to see obviously a bunch of different things. The mismatch that I would have gone with and that I'm going to go with is the sixth offensive lineman. There were times when Taylor Decker's healthy, Dan Skipper's that sixth guy, and they'll bring him in, and they might only do it 3 or 4 times, but they do it in crucial spots. And if he's not playing, Dan Skipper's at left tackle. Well, we saw Christian Mahogany play a little bit last week, kind of in a spot, little jam, because Zeitler got hurt. So I do wonder, does he end up playing outside of a Penei Sewell or a Dan Skipper, or do you put him in the backfield? Do you bring in a sixth offensive lineman for that? And you just go all kinds of different types of heavy, and you try to just, run it downhill like we've been talking about all night. But if not, I think you're right. Johnson is definitely kind of that mismatch. I think Benford has done a phenomenal job. What a find he has been for them, and what a developmental piece they've just developed him so nicely. He really stands out. His patience, and just how well he plays. He's so consistent. I think you and Eric did a film room on him a few weeks back, or maybe Eric did. I can't remember. I just know it was on the Cover One handle, and I tweeted it out. But just every single time I watch the Bills, and I haven't watched the Bills a ton this year compared to you and obviously the Bills fans, but every single time I watch the Bills and I watch their defense on the All-22, Benford, he's all over the place, it feels like. So I'm with you. I think Johnson can be the one that maybe gets exposed because of who he's going to end up having to probably guard out of the slot, whether it is Amon-Ra, Jamo, Sam Laporta. There's just different types of players that he's going to have to be prepared for, unless the Bills decide to shadow, certain defenders with certain offensive players from the Lions. But if not, I think it could be a rough day for Johnson, no doubt. But at the same time, I think the Lions' bread and butter this week will, no doubt, throw the football around, especially if the Bills go up at all and you got to chase the points. But I still think like they're going to stay true to who they are. They can run the football. And if the Bills are struggling to stop the run, which it does seem like they are a little bit, as we saw against the Rams at times last week, I think there will definitely be moments in this game where the Lions can expose them on the ground because of the heavy personnel that they get on the field.
I look for the Bills, and because I feel like with a team like the Rams, right, you kind of have to pick your poison. Like it's like facing a pitcher who has like a devastating, like a great fastball and like a devastating changeup and also a great curveball. You kind of have to be like, okay, I'm going to look for one of them. Right. And then if he gets me with the others, okay, he got me with the others. Because you can't just defend everything the Lions are going to do. Like if I'm looking for the Bills to try and sell out more for the run and be like, hey, we're going to try and create those negative plays. We're going to try and create tackle for loss. We're going to try and get early pressure on Jared Goff, fluster him, take advantage of the fact that he's not the best athlete back there.
Yeah.
And get after him early with whether it's run blitzes for the sake of the run or run blitzes that end up turning into pass blitzes because it's actually a play action pass or something like that. I look for the Bills to attack them that way. But then I also look for like the cat and mouse game of like, okay, are you getting that tackle for loss, or are you getting pressure or getting a sack, or did your run blitz come from the wrong side at the wrong time and now that's a 20-yard run, or it's play action and they blocked it up and now you've only got like 4 or 5 guys in coverage and there's all this space. Like who gets got more and who gets who. And I kind of look for, so I'm looking for that on that side of the ball. I like your 6th offensive lineman point for the Lions. I'm looking for that this is a great comp from Steve, who says the Lions are Greg Maddux. That's a great comp. That's a great comp. I like that a lot. Well done. I look for the Bills to incorporate more 6 offensive lineman sets. Alec Anderson has been a real weapon for them as the 6th offensive lineman. David Edwards was that guy last year, now a starter at left guard. Alec Anderson has been solid. Again, well, a lot of this is injury dependent, right? Like, is Coleman good to go and what percentage of health is he at? Same thing with Dalton Kincaid, all that conversation. But the Bills run game, and you alluded to it earlier, like the Bills have a good like run game. They're 8th in terms of EPA per attempt for running back carries only. For fun fact, the Lions are 4th. They're also 8th in terms of overall EPA for running back carries only. We've seen what Cook can do. We've seen what Ray Davis can do. Ty Johnson is a better running back than he gets credit for. I like the heavier sets with the 6th offensive lineman, especially because I think with all the injuries, I think the back end of the Detroit defense is far more talented than the front, given McNeil being banged up, Hutchinson being banged up, all the injuries they've had on that side. They still have some dudes, Anzalone being out. I would rather attack the front than attack the back end. And I would attack the back end through the front by going heavy. If I'm going 12 personnel, hopefully Quentin Morris is back. Then you're going Knox and Morris, so you have 2 better blocking tight ends. But I'm looking for that 6th offensive lineman to kind of mash Detroit, lean into the run, and then generate explosives with the play action pass. Not that you can't do it from spread or go, power spread and bully ball in that way. But I look for the Bills offense to do that because I think that's where you can attack this Detroit defense. Attack the defensive line, attack that front seven, and attack the secondary by going through that front, either on the ground or with play action and forcing them into kind of, forcing their hand a little bit.
I'm glad you mentioned Ty Johnson, former Detroit Lion Ty Johnson. And I feel like whenever I watch a Bills game like live, whether it's on CBS or Fox or whatever, every single time I feel like there's just moments where they pick and choose to sprinkle in Ty Johnson, and it just feels like it's an explosive play.
It feels like it works like every time. Like if he's on the field, it's either a really good block and pass pro or a really good run or a really good catch and run. He had the huge screen touchdown against the Rams. Yeah, he's batting like he's like a pinch hitter, but he's batting like 600. It's just like wild.
Right. Yeah. It's just, it's like he's like the Bills Brandon Inge, like he can play everywhere, do multiple things.
Nice Detroit Tigers comp. Oh, yeah. Man, nice pull. Yeah.
It's crazy every single time. I'm glad you mentioned Alec Anderson too. I was a big fan of him coming out of UCLA. Not big fan. I need to watch how I word that because Eric's going to roast me like he did Terrence Steele.
Oh, you're a big fan of Alec Anderson.
Yeah. No, he always caught my eye. I was like, man, we got to start talking about this kid. And I don't think he ended up getting drafted or whatever his path was, but he's found success in Buffalo. And I will be curious what that looks like with a heavy personnel if the Bills decided to do that. And put Allen in at linebacker.
Yeah, that's what was funny. He gets paid enough.
I mean, yeah, all these guys get paid enough, but nobody's getting paid like Juan Soto.
Bro, 765 with escalators up to 800. Crazy.
There's got to be a salary cap in MLB.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the heavy personnel for the Bills and how that potentially works for them and how they mix and match certain guys up front with their line of scrimmage. And you're right, they have to attack the Lions defense at times up front, depending on the health of the guys there. So pain.
Joe is a huge Yankees fan, so he's very upset about the Juan Soto news.
My bad, Joe. Didn't mean to bring up old stuff. My bad. Just move on. You guys are going to pay
the all caps separate comments of pain and then agony. Really, that made me laugh so hard. But you guys signed Freed, $218 million, most money ever for a left-handed pitcher. So that's still fun. At least you're not like my Red Sox who refuse to spend money, even though, you did get Freed 8 years. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, he's upset about there's so much. Sorry, I don't mean to.
It's a football podcast.
The all caps got me. As soon as he said pain, I knew what it was for. Continue. Sorry.
No, you're good. I completely lost where I was at with just the heavy personnel.
And talking about that being like a key for the Bills and what else. And again, they have a high success rate with it. They have a high EPA per attempt with it. And what's good is they can work play action with it, but they also can work the run game with it. And what's nice is you can put Alec Anderson in and then have Mac Hollins in there, who's a really good run block and wide receiver. And you can get a really good effective duo off of that. And they're good with duo. Weak side mid zone is their bread and butter this year, but they can work duo, all the tackle pull stuff, dart and long trap. But then you can go, what's nice is when you have that 6 offensive lineman, and this isn't just unique to the Bills. And this you're an offensive line coach. You put that 6 offensive lineman in there. When you go play action, now that 6 offensive lineman, that's your inline tight end. Now you got a big on big, and you have an offensive lineman blocking a defensive end, and it's not a tight end blocking a defensive end. You don't have that mismatch. So now you can create an actual real pocket and really try to push that ball downfield because I feel like we don't talk about it enough for teams. It's like they don't push the ball downfield.
Right.
And part of it is due to the weapons and quarterback and all that. But to push the ball downfield, you have to give the receivers time to get downfield. In order to have time to get downfield, your offensive line has to hold up and pass protect long enough for your quarterback to hold the ball and chuck it downfield. And you can do that on play action organically because you slow down the pass rushers by making them play run to pass to get to the QB. But when you get that 6 offensive lineman in there as that inline tight end, that's another offensive lineman. You can create a real surface out there. And it's not like, okay, well, we got our tight end matched up on a defensive end. We got to chip them or we got to give help or we got to slide or do something. I feel like that big on big is also a helpful piece as well.
And it'll be big on third down too. I mean, the Lions have struggled at times on third down. I mean, according to StatMuse, the Lions are 4th on third down conversion rate at almost 46%. They've They've allowed 71 conversions on 155 attempts.
Oh, so defensively, they've allowed like the fourth highest. They have the fourth highest conversion rate allowed defensively.
Correct, according to StatMuse. So it's like, all right, if you get into some predicaments here, I think, you bring in the heavier bodies, you kind of maybe play with the Lions defensive mindset of like, okay, we're going to run, power or duo right down your face here. And then all of a sudden Josh Allen's pulling the ball and he's rolling out, and you kind of have a loaded box and he gets out in space. So I think there's going to be ways for them to create the mismatches. And that's why I kind of alluded to the total earlier for the betting crowd out there. It's just like the Lions defenses that they're playing well, but 5 out of the 6 drives against the Packers to end that game, they allowed points. Not saying they're going to allow a ton of points, but if they get stops early, the Lions defense will be okay. That's kind of their MO. If they can get a couple of stops early in the game, get enough ahead before the half, they find ways to kind of escape with the win. It's not always pretty. And I think that'll be the case here, where it's not always pretty, but they'll do what they can. But yeah, I think the Bills can definitely expose them a little bit with heavier personnel and getting Allen out in space.
I like that. And the Allen piece, you mentioned it earlier, and you mentioned here again, like it usually is like the kind of the pendulum swinger, but I really feel like, again, that Lions front, I don't think they have the bodies to kind of like, are you going to spy Josh Allen? Okay, with who? Like, who's the one who's kind of keeping him in there? Who's hemming him in there? Like, your pass rush is also just, wounded, I'll say, to kind of put it like nicely. So yeah, are you blitzing? You got to maintain rush lane integrity, kind of put him in, like hem him in, because you don't have somebody who can just win one-on-one. You have to do it. It's like a true village and kind of get after him. Great pull here from Carl, who, again, thank you very much for the super chat again, Carl. And then for still being here, for being here all the time, for the super chat. Thank you very much. This is a great pull from Carl, who says the Lions and Bills are number 1 and 2 in run differential. By run differential, he means point differential for those who aren't baseball lingo. Lions and Bills are number 1 and 2 in run differential, except the Lions are first at plus 183. Domination of the entire NFL. The Bills are second, but they're a distant second at plus 129. Yeah, you have the 2 top point differential teams going after each other in this game. But yeah, the Lions being at plus 183, the Bills being second at plus 129. Crazy differential there, even just for, seeing where the Lions are at. That ties also a little bit kind of into my third point. And I mentioned it last week for the Rams game, but I think this game, it's even more important given who the Lions have, especially on the offensive side of the ball. You have to limit the Lions studs on the offensive side. Again, I said it for the Rams game last week, but it was less. I was like, okay, you can't let Matt Stafford have a Matt Stafford game where he's just pulling all these throws out of the hat, and he ended up pulling all these throws out of the hat. You can't let Puka Nacua go off and he went for like 10 plus catches, like 140 plus yards. Like, don't let Kupp go off. But that's kind of it on that side. Defensively, I was like, you can't let Jared Verse beat you. And they didn't. So that was well done on that side of the ball. But for the Lions offense, you can't let Sonic and Knuckles both get going. Like, you can't have 100+ yard game from Montgomery and from Gibbs. Like, you have to limit. And that's what gets so scary with the Lions, and kind of talking my other point earlier with like the pitches and what you got to look for, like, because it's hard to limit all those dudes. So do you choose to, okay, we're going to shut down the run. Maybe Amon-Ra gets his, but we're shutting down the run. Or is it Amon-Ra and Laporta will get theirs, but no one else will? Or J-Mo can get his, or Goff can have time. Like, you have to kind of.
That's what the Lions defense has been doing too.
Yes.
Like look at what they did to Jaden Reed's 1 target, no catch. I think he ended up leaving the game. But certain stars might go off against them, but everybody else is not going to do anything against them for their offense. So the Lions defense is going to shut everybody else down. Can the Bills defense do that against the Lions this week? I think that's a great pull and a great point. Can they do that? Because if they cannot, it's going to be a long day. I mean, it is what it is. The truth is the numbers are what the numbers are, and the records are what the records are. And not like I'm sitting here boasting about my team saying they're the best in the NFL, but record-wise and point-wise, yeah, they kind of are. But it can definitely happen to where they have maybe an off day, or the Bills strategically get guys out of the normal game plan that they have and really force them into really tough spots. So I think that's a great point.
Yeah, and that factors into just like how the Lions kind of are. Like, once they get going, like, they're so hard to stop. I mean, they're hard to stop in general, but once like they start feeling it and like the crowd is feeding off of it. Like when the run gets going and Amon-Ra gets going or Laporta makes a catch, like it just feels like, here they go. And like you're behind that 8 ball a little bit. And so when those dudes are like working it, it just hurts that much more. And yeah. You got to find like, but again, now it's pick your poison. Okay. Like who do we choose to limit? How? Taron Johnson is so good. Are you trusting Taron Johnson? Just be like, okay, Taron, like you got to lock down Amon-Ra. But it's tough to double guys from the slot. And especially because the Bills aren't a lot of like a man coverage team. They're more zone based. So like, are you trusting Taron one-on-one? Are you trusting to do it with coverage? Do you try to take away the run? Like what's your plan for Laporta? Like that. And within all that, like I thought the Rams had 3 big studs, Stafford, Kupp, and Nakua. 2 of them went off. Stafford balled out and Puka balled out. You can't, so that's a 60% roughly, like 66%. You can't have that type of hit rate again against the Lions. You can't let like Gibbs go off and Amon-Ra and JMO. Like you've got to limit it to 2 or 1 in some way, shape, or form. Like you just can't let the talent beat you. If they out scheme you and they beat you with structure and X's and O's and they hit you with a, some run concept that completely gets you with the jet motion or the return or the orbit and you're faked out or out leveraged. It sucks, but it's understandable. You can't also get beat on the individual talent level. It can't just be like multiple dudes are balling out. Like, and this is a fantasy, like whoever has the Lions offensive guys in fantasy this week is going to be overjoyed because they're balling out. You got to limit the studs. And I think that I usually say this for certain teams, but it's just really in my mind for that Rams game because it was no disrespect to like Kyren or Corum or Robinson. But that offense is really just like, don't let Stafford pull crazy throws out of the hat and don't let Puka beat you or even Kupp like that. And it's hard and they couldn't do that. And it's harder against the Lions now. Yeah, I just think that's a big one and a little bit of a scary one. That worries me. Like that keeps me up if I'm the Bills defense. Do you have another point or have we gotten all 3 of yours?
I think I'm good.
Right. You hit all 3.
Yeah. We hit offense, defense, talked run game, talked the passing game, talked the Lions defense, the health.
Oh, whoa. Hold on. I got to bring up this comment here. Rick's Always Right says the Bills will win a Super Bowl once this dude takes his Christmas tree down. First of all, this is now the Christmas tree. Yeah, good call, Russ. Thank you. This is the Christmas tree. This is up for the Christmas season and holiday. This little guy stays up all year round. And I change the garland every month based on whatever holiday exists for that month. And I appreciate Pops right here saying, don't go after the trees. That's right. Do not go after the trees. Do not. Oh, Kay Amori says the blue star on Ant's bigger tree looks like the buffering symbol.
Dude, I will say it has messed with me a couple of times. I'm like, I think the computer's jacked up.
Because that's a good call. I never noticed it. It's funny now that I'm like staring at it, I can't unstare at it. Like I'm just like hypnotized and like locked in. That's funny. Well done. Wanted to pull up another fun little graphic from our friends at BetUS that ties into this matchup, also ties into some MVP conversation stuff here. Russ, this graphic is for the passing touchdown leaders of 2024. Joe Burrow sits atop with 33. Lamar second at 29. Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield tied at 28. Then Jared Goff at 25. Josh Allen at 23. BetUS put this forward in terms of the conversation of, does Joe Burrow deserve to be in the MVP conversation for the year that he's had with Cincinnati? So kind of what are your thoughts on that? Do you think Burrow deserves to be in the MVP conversation? If you had an MVP vote, who are you maybe giving it to? And then also I think it's just fun to see this graphic and see that Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield are both in the top 4. Like who would have predicted that? But yeah, what are your thoughts on kind of the MVP race and where it stands right now?
Definitely leaning towards Saquon for sure as the MVP, just because of what he's been able to do there in Philly. Really kind of revitalize his career. I don't want to say he felt like he was done by any means because he's so talented and gifted, but to lead the NFL in rushing yards and to have the success that they're having in Philly, a lot of that I think is due to him. And then you look at Joe Burrow and that question that you're asking me. I know he's leading the NFL in passing yards and passing touchdowns, and he's had a phenomenal year. And if quarterback wins don't matter, then absolutely he should be in the conversation. But if they do matter, it is kind of tough for me to get behind that because he place for a football team that's 5-8 and is hanging on to a playoff berth by, by his fingertip, So overall, though, yeah, I think it's probably down to Saquon and Josh Allen. I think Jared Goff's definitely up there for good reason. Lamar, yes, but outside of that, I think it would like if I had to pick four, it would probably be Josh Allen, Saquon, Jared Goff, Lamar, and then Joe Burrow's kind of right in there too.
My thought, and I've said this since maybe like week 8 or 9, I thought Jared Goff was a big dark horse for MVP. And I thought this game between the Bills and Lions could go a long way towards like cementing the MVP vote for one or both of them potentially. Now my thought is, I really do think, and I think a lot of people think this, it's between Saquon and Allen. But it's so hard for a non-QB to win MVP. Like, I really think two things have to happen. I think the Bills have to lose this game and maybe lose another one. Like, Allen has to start to play poor. Barkley has to break Eric Dickerson's rushing record. Like, you have to do the MVP is essentially a quarterback award. Like, you have to do something nuts to win it, not as a QB.
Right.
So if Allen, even if the Bills lose this game, if they have another loss against Detroit, the way they had a loss against the Rams, where it's like 38-35 or 41-38, and Allen puts up 5 touchdowns and over 400 total yards again, he's doing his thing. Like, Allen would really have to fall apart, and Saquon has to take it over for it to really swing. But again, I'm not going to discount Goff just because of I think like the emotion of it, of the Lions having a good year, him putting up some numbers, being the quarterback of the best offense, even though they have a ton of dudes around him as a supporting cast. It's always weird. The MVP, I think, has become more and more like the Heisman Trophy in the past couple of years, where like you need to have a moment or you need to have a cool thing. Like, I think for like, I'm not against Lamar winning the MVP last year. Like, one, I don't really care who wins the MVP. Two, I think Lamar is awesome, and if cool, he won it. But I think that game against the Niners really solidified. Like, the Niners were viewed as arguably the best team in football. The Ravens beat them. Lamar balled out. And then there was kind of lack of like other contenders. I feel like you need to have those moments. And Allen having that run against Kansas City at the end of the game that beat Kansas City, how much he balled out against the Rams, even though they lost. If the Bills go in and beat the Lions, quarterback wins, even though they're not a thing, matter. I feel like he can really wrap up the MVP. If the Bills beat the Lions in Detroit, I feel like the MVP goes with Josh Allen, and it would have to take a lot for it to not go with him.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And I think the only way, as you mentioned, the only way it kind of falls apart for Josh is if he absolutely falls off, throws like 2-3 picks a game, and things like that. I will say, I kind of wish we could talk about Baker in this sense, but the Bucs are so up and down, and I know Baker leads the NFL in like turnover-worthy plays for quarterbacks.
But see, what bothers me about that, like I said it over the weekend, like if their offense stayed healthy, I think it's a different conversation. If Godwin
100%.
stays healthy, Evans has been out, McMillan has been out, like those dudes, that offense, Cohen is having a fun year. Graham Barton, our boy, who we joked about a million times at the Senior Bowl, like has played well. Like, they have a good O-line. They have 3 sweet running backs, 2 really with Bucky and Rashad. If that offense stayed healthy, like I really feel like, I don't know if he's in the MVP conversation, but I could see Baker having just like crazy good numbers and the Bucs like being significantly ahead in the NFC South because of, they're the one team who beat the Lions.
Yeah, and they could be a surprise team if they get in the playoffs. I think they will, just because the way that division's going.
Yeah, the South. The Falcons just don't seem. The Falcons do the same thing every year. Like, they falcon. Like, they just end up being mid and don't do what you think they should do and lose the games that they should win. It's so infuriating. I tweeted this too over the weekend. Like, it doesn't matter the coach or the roster. The Falcons do the same thing every year. Like, they're going to be 8-9 or like 7-10. They're going to lead the South for a while and then end up finishing second and missing. Like, they do the same thing. Oh, K. Amori said it. Yeah. Falcon's going to Falcon just like the Charger's going to Charger. Yeah. I completely agree. Every friggin' year. It's absolutely infuriating. But yeah, fun conversation. Presented, of course, and brought to us by our friends over at BetUS, who, again, if you're looking for a new sports book this football season, BetUS is the Answer: they have the fastest payouts in the industry, a 150% bonus on your first deposit, and then a 125% bonus on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000 with code YouTube150. That's YouTube150. They give you a fast and easy deposit and withdrawal process, 24/7 personalized service, 365 days a year, live wagering on all major games, the best betting variety in the business. They allow you to get 10% back on your net losses twice a year, and they also can give you your very own personal account manager. Check out our friends and folks over there at BetUS. Russ, any parting thoughts for the folks before we start to end this segment?
I think I'm good, man. I don't do score predictions.
Neither do I. I'm far too superstitious.
Yep. I did it once last year and never again. So thank you, Baltimore Ravens. Yeah. No, I think I'm good, man. I'm excited for this game. Been having it on the calendar since it dropped. Been looking forward to doing this episode, which again, thank you as always for bringing me back and let me talk a little football. Enjoy the game. Have fun. Be safe. Detroit's a great place. It gets a bad rap like most big cities, but stay in the downtown part. You'll be perfectly fine. A lot of great food, a lot of great restaurants, couple of casinos. Be a degenerate. If I'm in the area, I'll come say hello. If you reach out to me, we'll have a beer or something. But yeah, no, enjoy the game if you're going, and go Lions, go Bills.
Very nice, very nice. Quick comment and question here from DF Forever, who says, quick question: if Josh Allen does not get the MVP, what does he need to do to get it? Oof. I don't know, man. It's so. I mean, I see Russ. I see you shaking your head too. So much of it. I don't want to say political, but so much of it is like the Bills would have to get the 1 seed and he has to dominate. Like, I really do feel like this is the year for Allen to get the MVP because, one, I don't think anyone else is balling out. Like, the Lions and Chiefs both have the best record, but Mahomes is having a down year for him, and Goff isn't like the catalyst necessarily for that offense. Allen is the catalyst for a good team and has a bunch of primetime moments, Heisman-worthy moments. I really do feel like this has to be the year. He would have to, like you said, he would have to fall apart for Allen to not get it. Like, the Bills have to go on they have to lose like one of the 2 games left against the Patriots. They have to lose that second game against the Jets. Like, he's got to go like 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions in multiple games. Like, he has to fall apart. Like, it should be. I think he's the betting favorite right now for MVP. Yes. So yeah, I would say, of course, you know that, degenerate. I feel like he'd have to fall apart. Like they would have to fall apart. I mean, yes, the Bills would fall apart.
And this is their hardest game left on the schedule. I mean, there's no easy game in the NFL, but you follow with the Patriots, the Jets, the Patriots. I mean, you
close it out.
You can close this out. So I think he'll be okay. And I think at the end of the day, I think they'll end up getting it.
I think so too. Pops with a cool question. He says, "Who's coach of the year? Do you have a coach of the year?" I have one.
I think everybody knows who my coach of the year is.
Dan Campbell. I would be fine with Campbell. I'd probably go with Kevin O'Connell.
That's fair.
McCarthy goes down. Everybody's like, what are you going to get from Sam Darnold? And he's out there having this career.
I just had him on the graphic.
I know. I literally was saying, like, he was just on the graphic. I'd probably go with O'Connell just because and I know Darnold in terms of backup QBs, Darnold, even before this year, is kind of at the higher end of the spectrum in terms of backup QBs. But I don't think anybody thought that they were going to be sitting here having like one of the best records in football, and Sam Darnold was going to be tied for 3rd in passing touchdowns, and they were going to ball. Like, when McCarthy went down, I remember the fantasy conversation was like, well, now what do you do with Justin Jefferson because Sam Darnold's his quarterback? Could he even get him the ball? Yada, yada. Like, that's such a – and then also they lost Darisaw and traded for Robbins. So you lose your best offensive lineman. You lose the guy who you drafted high to be your quarterback, and you just turn Sam Darnold into the comeback player of the year and let him ball the hell out. Like, that for me is kind of just it's similar to kind of what Stefanski did, not having, really any quarterback last year. So yeah, I think that would be.
That's a good vote. I would agree with either one of those for sure.
Thank you. One last question from Carl, who says, what's better, Detroit pizza or Buffalo wings? Any friendly bet for food between the two? No friendly bet for food between the two of us. I've never had, I don't know if Little Caesars counts, but I've never had Detroit pizza.
That's not Detroit pizza.
I know.
It's the
They're from
deep
Detroit,
dish,
though.
man. It's the Detroit style deep dish.
I've never had Detroit style deep dish. I've been to Chicago and had Chicago deep dish. I went to Detroit when I was little. I went to you'll like this. I went to Tigers Cards the first year that Comerica Park opened, which was
Okay.
pretty sweet. Yep, pretty sweet. But I don't think we got pizza. If we did, I don't remember it. So I've never had Detroit style pizza.
So when you say buffalo wings, what like do we just mean like if I go get
Wings from Buffalo.
Yeah, was that what that means? Because I've never had wings from Buffalo.
I'm thinking it means like Detroit pizza or like wings from Buffalo. So pizza from Detroit style pizza or Buffalo style wings.
Yeah, I mean I have to say Detroit pizza because I've never been to Buffalo to have wings. Would love to go. I've thought about it many times. It's on the bucket list. We will definitely check it off in the near future. But and I will get wings. I promise.
I will get wings. I promise. I like that. Dan Charles said, I don't want a casserole for a pizza.
That's messed up, dude.
That was so. I felt the anger.
It's still not as it's better than Chicago pizza. I don't care what anybody says. That's a casserole. That's like lasagna.
Yeah, I felt like that's a great point. I felt like I was eating lasagna or like a lasagna pie. Like it was still good, but I didn't feel like I was eating pizza. Like I had to use like a fork and knife, and it was really good. But I was like, this isn't for me. That's not pizza. It was still good.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
And I will say like a New York slice. I've never been to New York to have a slice of pizza, but I was in Pittsburgh for baseball and like old Italian joint type pizzeria. So kind of, it's obviously not in New York, so it's a little different, but it was still very good pizza. And I was like, okay, I get what all the hype is about now. I get it. Because here we only have Detroit style or like the main chains. Like there's one guy, Freddie the Pizza Man down in Melvindale. So people that are coming to Detroit for the game, Freddie the Pizza Man, check him out. Great food. And it's relatively close. So check it out.
I like the comment here from Joe who says there's a place in New York City that is Detroit style, and it's called Lions, Tigers, and Squares. That is absolutely an elite name. My favorite pizza spot in New York was Prince Street Pizza down in Soho. Oh, it's so good. Big, thick squares like Sicilian slices. Yeah, that. But I also feel like, I don't know, I like a lot of pizza spots. What'd you say?
I'm getting hungry.
Bro, I'm sitting here thinking right now, I'm like, yeah, it's like 10:53, and I'm like, damn, like I really want like some pizza.
I want a slice of pizza. Like,
yeah, how do I get the pizza into my mouth right now? Speaking of that, Russ, I'm going to do some love for the pizza sponsor of this show. And then we'll say goodbye to everybody. One Pie Pizza, you folks know the deal. I've been talking about it and plugging it a bunch. Oh, yeah, I see Joe's comment there talking about Prince Street is elite. It absolutely is elite in New York City. But here in Buffalo, my favorite pizza spot, One Pie Pizza. And I don't say that because they sponsor the show. They sponsor the show because they are my favorite, and I think they are the best. Great sweet sauce pie, cup and char pepperoni, homemade blue cheese, great cheese to sauce ratio. They do a breakfast pie in the morning. That's great. They also do catering with all these amazing mac and cheeses, but their pizza truly is elite, and they're extremely generous in giving back to the community. I've been plugging this for the last several weeks. They do Toys for Tots every holiday season. So if you drop an unwrapped gift into their Toys for Tots donation box, you can receive a chance to win one of many great prizes. The prizes include a signed Josh Allen custom jersey, a signed James Cook custom jersey, 1 free pizza a month for a year, 4 free pizzas, or 1 free pizza. Those are the prizes from first place to fifth. And this may be ridiculous, but I would take the 1 free pizza a month for a year over everything on this list. Like, that's how good that pizza is. Like, you can keep the Josh Allen jersey, the James Cook. Give me the 1 free pizza a month for a year. That's how good their stuff is. So go to One Pie Pizza, treat yourself and your taste buds to some amazing food. And again, even if you're not about the food, do some Toys for Tots, drop some stuff off, whether it's at One Pie, whether it's at somewhere else, or if you donate to a church or Goodwill or something like that. Whatever you can do this holiday season. I continue to say this every episode, and I continue to say that every episode. But I love Christmas. It's my favorite holiday. But the holiday season and Christmas isn't always awesome for everyone. So anything you can do to kind of make a kid's day or a kid's year or a family's in some way, shape, or form, whether it's one toy, whether it's multiple toys, whatever you do, donate if you can in any way, shape, or form. And if you're just in it for the selfishness and prize opportunities or the pizza, this is a way to help somebody out and also potentially help yourself. So go get yourself some One Pie Pizza. Online menu can be found in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on. Russ, you crushed it. Feel free to plug anything and everything you got, where everybody can find you and what you do and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, not much change for your boy over here. Probably most people are pretty familiar with it, but if not, you can find me on Twitter at Russ NFL Draft or X, whatever you call it. I don't have pretty much any other social media, so just find me on that. Drop me a follow. A lot of football stuff all the time, a lot of Lions stuff at this point in time. But when we get to draft season, I post quite a bit of draft stuff. And I'm sure I'll be back doing draft stuff here with Anthony on some different occasions, talking about different spots. But other than that, find my work over at Fantasy Pros. I do NFL draft content there, betting content at Betting Pros. Follow my Lions stuff over at the Lions Wire. And of course, you can find my podcast on Detroit Lions Podcast. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We do one episode a week. It's about 30, 40 minutes. Me and Scott Bischoff have a lot of fun with it. So appreciate it as always, Ant. It's a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, you are legitimately one of the best, one of the true ball knowers in an age of people pretending to be ball knowers and kind of putting on for it when they're not really about that life. You know what's up. Great stuff on Lions stuff, NFL stuff in general, and the college content. Yeah, you nailed it. I'm sure everybody here already knows who you are, but we get up, I don't know, pretty much like once every month for the entire draft season. Honestly, we'd probably get up more, but you have commitments in life and like radio spots and everything that you're doing. So you're a busy man come college football season. But yeah, we'll definitely get you back on the show as much as your schedule allows because you're such a busy man. But I appreciate you stopping by. You crushed it. Thank you to everyone who joined us live in this episode. Before you go, please drop a like on this video here on YouTube if you have not already. Turn on notifications for the Disguise Coverage playlist. Subscribe to the Cover One channel. Even if you're not watching live, drop a like on this video and subscribe and do all that kind of stuff if you would be so kind. If you're listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, that's cool too. Please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage. Check out the other content on the Cover One channel again as a whole. And if you enjoyed this episode, tell your family and friends and loved ones about how awesome this show is and they should check it out. If you thought this show was terrible, tell your enemies and try and ruin their day by making them watch this show. Thank you very much to Russ for crushing it. Thank you very much to everybody who tuned in live. If you didn't tune in live, that's cool too. Whatever form or fashion your support, view, listen, download comes in, greatly appreciated. Thank you very much to Carl for being here and for both your super chats and a bunch of good comments along the way. I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. I'll see you tomorrow for an episode of the Cover One Film Room. I'll see you next Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern for another episode of Disguise Coverage. Until then, I'm Anthony Prohaska. That's Mr. Russell Brown. Godspeed. And as always, go Bills. And one last piece for Russ, Bret Hart is better than Shawn Michaels.